I would like to apologize in advance for the length of this video, but that's what happens when you don't plan out your videos and timetables accordingly. The reason this video is so long is because we have 2 whole-ass novels, a director's cut movie, and a bland 2000s third-person shooter to cover. So I think it's time for some history on how what we are about to cover came to being created in the first place. Final Fantasy VII came out in January of 1997 in Japan and September in North America to critical acclaim, winning accolades like Reader's Choice Awards RPG of the Year and Editor's Choice Awards Hottest Video Game Babe for Tifa Lockhart. It was definitely the 90s. Comment in the comments below who your hottest waifu or husbando of the year is. Sun Wukong looking kinda nice. Monkey. With such praise and impact on gaming as a whole, Final Fantasy VII was the prime choice for expansion. The story goes that Yoshinori Kitase and Tetsuya Nomura, the director and the character designer of OG FF7, were approached about expanding a game across multiple platforms and mediums. Final Fantasy VII was chosen due to its large world building, beloved characters, and game notoriety, thus giving us the compilation of Final Fantasy VII as we know it. Advent Children, Before Crisis, Crisis Core, and Dirge of Cerberus. Before Crisis released in 2005 episodically, ending support with its last episode release of the Sung side story revolving around Sung learning the importance of what it means to be a Turk, and a new boss, the Jade Weapon. As far as I'm concerned, it isn't canon, but here's the rundown. The planet created the Jade Weapon to not only look like a stingray crossed with a stealth bomber, but as a means to destroy Zirconiade before it nuked the whole planet. Since the Turks stopped it before the weapon could arrive, the Jade Weapon decided that the Turks are now the threat. That, or it got mad that the Turks stole its kill. The other Turks that fought Zirconiade somehow survived and went into hiding around the globe. Veld, who is also not dead, contacts the remaining Turks to find and destroy the weapon. God, this is so non-canon it hurts, as it takes place during the events of OG FF7. One thing that is cool though is that when this update was released, it was similar to Pokemon Go but for flip phones. Depending on where you were in Japan determined where you fought the Jade Weapon. So if you were in the Kanto area of Japan, you would fight the Jade Weapon in Junon, or Cosmo Canyon if you were in Central Honshu. Advent Children was released on September 14th, 2005 in Japan and April 25th, 2006 in North America, on DVD and UMD for PlayStation Portable. What a throwback. Does anyone else remember that shit? Watching movies on the PSP until the damn UMD was scratched all to hell? The dates are important because the novel, On the Way to a Smile, started as a series of episodic novellas released on the official Advent Children website in Japan on September 5th, 2005, with only episode Denzel. Episode Tifa would release on V-Jump's Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Prologue, and episode Barret was released in limited edition box sets of AC in Europe and North America, meaning we would not get the whole story of the 2-year time gap between the original game and movie until the director's cut Advent Children Complete released on April 16th, 2009, when On the Way to a Smile released simultaneously with it. And yes, that is stupid! Adding on to it, The Kids Are Alright, a Turk side story was released in 2011. And as much as I would like to just brush this aside, as it is not part of the initial compilation of Final Fantasy VII, it does introduce some people that appear in the remake trilogy and discuss more about the world after Meteorfall, adding some very necessary context to fully understand the confusion that is Advent Children. So I can't brush it aside. And hopefully after watching this video, you can rewatch Advent Children with a lot more enjoyment, because the story won't feel like there is so much exposition missing. So come with me as I guide you through to the end of this messy story.
Is it wrong to spread happiness through Mako energy? Is that what you consider evil?
You do realize what Mako is, don't you? The planet bleeds green like you and me bleed red. The hell you think's gonna happen when it's all gone, huh? Answer me!
Picture a world without Shinra, without Mako energy. A stagnant, impotent world. Now picture a natural disaster. Who would help the people? Help them recover and rebuild? You? With their old world ruined, will they thank you for the new?
Warning! Because I want to stick to the order of events as they happen, I am going to be jumping all over the place. On the Way to a Smile covers the main cast of Final Fantasy VII and the boy Denzel over varying degrees of events and importance that stretches over 2 years. I only try to cover big events that are important to world building, character significance that later appears in Advent Children, and just a few of my personal favorite moments. If you want to read it for yourself, link in the description. So let's hit this hop! Something that should be cleared up is that the life stream coming to help destroy Meteor was not as peaceful as it is shown in OG FF7 and Advent Children. The life stream didn't spring out of the ground like plants. It more resembled the destructive force and power seen in Ever Crisis: The First Soldier and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in the Temple of the Ancients.
Please tell me you saw that.
No comment.
And it erupted from nearly every corner of the planet, not just the Midgar region. I bring this up for 2 reasons. Number 1, with the life stream ripping and tearing out of the ground, it actually altered the landscape of the planet. For example, that big ass mountain in between Midgar and Junon split open, allowing land vehicles to travel freely between the two, meaning no more snake bites. And 2, Sephiroth is a sneaky bastard. He succeeded in stopping himself from assimilating into the lifestream system by using his indomitable will and Genova's power. By doing so, he now resides in the lifestream like a parasite. How I assume this works, if I'm interpreting the lore correctly, is that the lifestream is composed of a stream of memories flowing in a boundless sea. Memories of the lives of those past and those yet to be. Their experiences, their image, their voice, and their thoughts. Their very essence. Sephiroth had to relinquish a lot of himself to be able to avoid becoming a part of the life stream. Memories from when he was a boy, of his few friends, of the battles when he was still unaware, of his life in bygone days. All these became a part of the inundation, encased around Meteor, and finally receded. It's this reason as to why I believe we're going to get more information on it now in The First Soldier, but that's a theory video for a different day. When the lifestream erupted, Sephiroth left one last middle finger to the planet, something that is known as geostigma.
The stigma. It's a symptom of alien matter infesting the body. The body tries to eliminate it and overcompensates. Inside our bodies is a current, like the lifestream. That current is what fights off any malevolent intruders.
What do you mean by intruder?
The Sephiroth gene. Genova's Memetic legacy. Call it what you want.
If the lifestream is a manifestation of memories, the memories are what allows life to continue flowing. Essentially, the memories of those before become a part of new life on the surface to then live, create new memories, and die. So provided that Sephiroth can keep a memory of himself alive, he could eventually return. Hence, the geostigma. The stigma is Sephiroth's dark spirit plaguing the lives of those above. And Cloud is the core of this spirit. He plagues the people that want to escape this life or those that have lost purpose in their existence. People with weak wills or an acceptance of death. Even if my spirit disseminates, even if just one fragment of a memory courses around the planet, in the end I can count on Cloud's consciousness to bring me back, the man thought. Which brings us back to the fated day. As Meteor was plummeting to the ground, all the Turks were on evac and search and rescue in Midgar. And I mean all the Turks, including the ones that were presumed dead when they fought Zirconiade. With President Rufus safe and calm after the diamond weapon unloaded on Midgar, the Turks' focus was on redeeming their actions that led to Meteor's arrival in the first place. On the outskirts, we find Denzel and Ruvi, accepting their fate. The lifestream erupts from all over the planet and converges on Midgar. The destructive force of the lifestream swept through houses and people, including Denzel and Ruvi. As the lifestream made its way to Meteor, it tore past Ruvi's house. The window that Denzel threw the toy airship through was boarded, but not strongly enough to take the force of nature happening outside. Ruvi protected Denzel by hiding him behind a door until both passed out from force and light cascading through the house. With Meteor now reduced to ash, the lifestream returned to below the surface, ushering ushering in a new era for the planet's inhabitants, one where Shinra and their support was gone. Mako can no longer be used as an energy source, and everyone must come together to pick up the pieces. Denzel survived, but Ruby was not looking good. She asked Denzel to hold her hand. Ruby saw Denzel as a son at this point, but still thought and worried for her own son, the Shinra executive Reeve Tuesti. Denzel checked on the aftermath outside, but when he went back to Ruby, she was dead. He didn't know it at the time, but this was his first brush with geostigma. Denzel leaves with the other survivors outside, led by a man named Gaskin after burying Ruby in the backyard with Reeve's old books and sewing kit. But Denzel kept a flower handkerchief to remember her by. They all make their way to the slums in hopes of finding shelter. We briefly turn our attention to our heroes. The world has been saved, so now what? Well, the team decided to stop by a place they could all be together and find respite, the Forgotten Capital. They all have work to do in this new era, except Vincent. Guy's got nothing better to do but brood, and yet he was the first one to leave. Okay, that is not entirely true. While he did leave with hardly a goodbye, he does have a knack of showing up for his companions at the time when they need him most. Sid decides to use what's left of the High Winds field to get the rest of the team back to their specific regions and then begin finding alternative fuel sources. Mako can no longer be used, regardless of how convenient it was. Cloud, Tifa, and Barret decide to pick up Marlene at Calm, head back to what's left of Midgar, and rebuild 7th Heaven. Fred 13, or Nanaki, will return to Cosmo Canyon before adventuring off and fulfilling Bugenhagen's last request for him, to explore the wonders that the planet has to offer. Yuffie will return home to rebuild a Shinra-less Wutai and bask in the glory of being a bona fide hero of her homeland. Katsith, or Reeve, will begin a new initiative of rebuilding the world. But before they go separate ways, Yuffie suggests that she should keep all the materia they've accumulated. After all, that is the reason she joined them in the first place. Cloud agrees that all the materia is hers to own, but the materia that can't be used for healing should remain with him for safekeeping. Let's be honest, Yuffie does not need Knights of the Round. Yuffie agrees, but they are hers. We now turn our attention to Rufus, who is now residing in Calm and is in recovery. Now that Shinra is a rotten wart in everyone's mouth, anything associated with that name is just asking for trouble. But Rufus can't just sit by and do nothing. Everyone is scared, and for the most part, no one has a clue or enough influence to come up with a restoration plan. Shinra Inc. did everything for nearly everyone in Midgar. What do the common people know about what to do or how to go about it? But Rufus has the experience, knowledge, and resources, limited as they may be. The Turks are out in Midgar, assessing the damage and building a report to bring back to Rufus so they can start rebuilding. But before the Turks could return, Rufus was found out by a once wealthy man in Calm named Mutton Kylegate, a former Junon lieutenant. He was leading a small group of angry and scared people. Cooler than a block of ice, Rufus talks his way out of being killed by proving his knowledge and resources are too useful to be rid of. Midgar was a big place with a lot of people. Calm was being used as a place for refugees, but there is only so much space and resources to be provided. A new city would have to be built, and people need guidance on how to build it. So Mutton decides to kidnap Rufus and take his ideas to build a new town on the edge of Midgar. Get it? Because the town is called Edge. Because it's on the edge of Midgar. Of course, Rufus only tells bits and pieces of his plan, considering his life was tied to his knowledge. He also needed to give the Turks time to figure out how to find him. About 2 weeks later, the Turks establish an office in Midgar Sector 5 and check the warehouses Rufus planned to use for their resources to find them empty. People have been using the warehouses to start building Edge. The Turks aren't mad at the citizens, considering giving them these resources was the plan from the beginning, but they do need to know how the locals came across this information about them. That's when Veld suddenly appears to help give them some much needed information about Mutton. The biggest info being that he would be the prime suspect due to his openness of leading the people into building Edge and the fact he owns a large mansion in Calm, where the president was last seen. Before the Turks could arrive to save Rufus, someone else got to him first. A man who was Mutton's lackey got tired of doing all the work but getting none of the credit, so he was tasked by a doctor to kidnap Rufus for him in exchange for getting revenge on Mutton. Revenge came in the form of some bullets in the body. The doctor was a man named Killmister, a scientist that worked for Shinra. His status was just below the assistants to Professor Hojo.
I'm in danger!
He is taken to a cave past the outskirts of Calm along with 9 other people, all of them exhibiting geostigma. Little is known about what this disease is, so Killmister is using them as test subjects to learn more, like why Genova cells are appearing in the blood of normal citizens. He has experience with Genova cells and wants to find a cure. Unfortunately, after a couple weeks, he can only find a way to suppress the pain it exerts, not cure the stigma. Resources are running low, but Rufus suggests that he can grant access to more stimulants from Shinra HQ. He writes Killmister a letter to give to the assassins that reside there. Of course, doing this in hopes the Turks catch on, give the stimulants, and then follow Killmister to the cave. While Killmister was gone, a flood began rising in the cave Rufus was in. By this point, all 9 of the other subjects were reduced to 2. Rufus took charge as best he could to get everyone out of the cave. Obviously, the ladder into the cave was pulled up, so Rufus rode the rising water, hoping to reach the top. But the water stopped short of the exit. It's here that the fear of death from treading water enters his mind, which is the catalyst for Geostigma as the water around him turned to black and nearly engulfed him. Shortly after this moment, a ladder is dropped and Killmister has returned. Rufus gets to the top along with the only survivor named Judd. The Turks appear to help and they head to Cliff Resort, a once vacation spot that Shinra technically owns. There they reside for the next 2 years or so and use it as a base of operations for discovering more about Geostigma. They renamed this Helan. At some point during the 2-year gap, a mysterious, wealthy benefactor, probably Rufus, is providing funding to a new organization to help with building a new infrastructure and security team made of volunteers to protect and rebuild the world. The World Regenesis Organization, or WRO, headed by Reeve. They would assist with civilian transfer from Calm and the city of Edge after its construction. Speaking of which, let's turn our attention to the newly founded Edge during its construction. Denzel is with Gaskin and a decent amount of other children with no home or families. They become the Sector 7 research team, initially helping with evacuating refugees from Midgar in exchange for food. About a month into this, Gaskin dies of Geostigma. The team learns that Edge is being created, so one by one the kids leave for Edge. They assist with Edge's construction as they are small, allowing them to reach areas to find supplies hidden under rubble. But Denzel didn't want to be treated differently for being an orphan and potentially a burden. So he and another boy named Rick stay behind. Denzel suggests they start hunting and killing rats for food, saying, "I'm going to become a real kid in the slums." But that comment made Rick realize that Denzel was an upper plate boy while he actually grew up in the slums, meaning Denzel really thought that slum kids ate rats daily. Rex leaves Denzel behind, letting him know that the bacteria on the rats that Denzel's fellow upper platers created from dumping all the contaminated water for so many years would kill any human that tried to eat it. He then leaves Denzel all alone without saying another word. I think the only thing missing was a middle finger and a "f you." Cloud, Barret, and Tifa, having picked up Marlene from Elmira and Calm, make their way back to Midgard to come across Edge. From there, they decide to rebuild the Seventh Heaven Bar as both a place of revenue and a new home. They even managed to make their own wine. For a little while, things were nice. Barret was the bouncer, Marlene would take patrons' orders, Tifa cooked and bartended, and Cloud would find and barter ingredients. He was a very good salesman. A few weeks after the new Seventh Heaven opening, Barret decides to leave, in order to settle his past, as he called it. After the bombing of Reactor 1 and losing Sector 7, Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, he said he would honor them by continuing to live, but an idle life just isn't for him. He wants to make a difference. He's a fighter. Barret needs something to fight, not just something to fight for. But with Shinra gone, what's left? Before leaving Marlene with Cloud and Tifa, he says,
"Don't just take. Prove that you can give too."
And he sets off. After half a year, Barret finds that with no one using Mako anymore, people seem just as lost as he does. And fighting random monsters in the nearby forest doesn't help either. But he's like level 99 at this point. Materia or not, these things die too easily and he gets no experience. So of course the only thing he was doing was killing time. After seeing how people feared him for his size and the literal Gatling gun attached to his arm, Barret decides that he needs an arm that can be just that, an arm. So he goes to see the person who made the universal attachment for him in the first place, Old Man Sakaki. He agrees to make a hand for Barret to use, but it would take a week. While he does that, he asks Barret to help his nephew with something. Sakaki's nephew was in charge of collecting food from the local farms with a bunch of people. Barret agrees to help keep monsters away, while also helping grab up the food. While he's planting seeds, he thinks that while Mako can't be used, we could go back to using coal to power machines, make people's lives easier again. But then a woman begins dying on the farm from her geostigma. The woman's last words were, "Take me to Midgar." By vehicle, that was impossible, but then someone wished they had an airship, so people could get to Midgar or wherever the cure would be discovered. And who's the best person on the planet when it comes to airships? Sick goddamn Highwind. So Barret decides to pay him a visit. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Nanaki and Yuffie have returned to their homes. Nanaki stays in the Vale of Cosmo Canyon for a few days before leaving to explore the world. But when he does, he feels a sudden wave of a black void, something that is uncommon to him, but we in real life feel nearly every day.
Anxiety.
Yes, I am not joking. So Nanaki's race is capable of living for hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 years. Even if he doesn't know what it is at that time, he's suffering from fear of loss. Unless something kills him, good fucking luck with that by the way, Nanaki will meet and love so many people over his long life, meaning he will live long enough to see everyone he's ever known die someday. And that thought is enough to put him in a full-blown panic. He doesn't know the cause yet at this point in the story, but because names are how he keeps track of things, he calls this feeling Gilligan. I'm okay. Anyway, Nanaki decides his way of travel. He'll start with seeing Yuffie and Wutai, head to Rocket Town to check on Sid, and then stop by Nibelheim. While Nanaki was traveling to Wutai, Yuffie was having a terrible hero's welcome. Long story short, Yuffie arrives to find Wutai was struck by the life stream during Meteor's collision. Town was alright, but a lot were injured. So Yuffie became Dr. Yuffie for a bit, and put that healing materia to good use. But when people started getting geostigma, Yuffie was blamed for it because the town believed that it was the Midgar disease. Insert COVID joke here. The people were afraid and needed someone to blame. Because it showed up around the time of Yuffie's return and everyone was receiving treatment from her, she was the prime choice. She then partners up with an old friend named Yuri to find a cure. The materia they have here is obviously not working, but they have hope the cure resides somewhere out there, either from Midgar, as people believe that it is Geostigma's place of origin, or perhaps in a materia cave where they found the most powerful of materias, because homegrown materia is usually the best. If I understand the description the book gives of the cave correctly, it refers to the materia cave in the Wutai region where you pick up Mime in the original game. The two of them headed south to the place known as the Materia Caves. The area was where the Shinra company had once planned to set up a Mako reactor, and it was what triggered the battle. Mako reactor construction area. To put it simply, you could say it was a fertile land filled with the life stream. Long ago, it was a place that you could only reach by chocobos that were raised and obtained special powers. Inside, they came across a few fiends which Yuffie dispatched with ease. Yuri tried to help, but just couldn't keep up with the greatest materia hunter. After the fiends were dispatched, the cave filled with black liquid, similar to what Rufus experienced when he was stricken with geostigma. They barely escape, but Yuri gets hit by it and now has geostigma. Unable to move, Yuffie attempts to drag Yuri back to Wutai. That's when Nanaki arrives to help, as this was his first stop on his journey around the world. A small interaction ensues where Nanaki is tasked by Yuffie to find a cure. Spoiler warning, he doesn't find shit. Nanaki now makes his way to Midgar to search for answers as opposed to his original plan. He begins by passing through the Mount Nebel forest, where he comes across a boy being attacked by a bear. Nebel bears are apparently very sought after by Shinra, as they used their tails to make stimulants.
Do you want to stop the sniffles or not feel your head?
Nanaki helped save the boy by distracting the bear until another gunshot came and took out the bear. The father of the boy comes in and attempts to kill Nanaki, but Nanaki takes the high ground and turns the other cheek. He comes back and hides to watch them take the corpse of the bear apart for food and resources. While it is unfortunate what happened to the bear, Nanaki respects the hunters for using all of the bear's corpse as opposed to killing it for sport. In the end, kill or be killed are the laws of the forest. They left, and Nanaki was about to as well, but then the bear's cubs came to find their mother dead. Nanaki, seeing that these cubs will die on their own, decided to stay with them, teach them how to hunt and survive, and care for them for a year or so. Okay, so let's move on over to Midgar with Marlene and her two godparents, Cloud and Tifa. If it wasn't apparent from the previous cases, every one of the original characters is suffering, and these two are no exception. Both of them are suffering from survivor's guilt, like Barret, but in different ways. Tifa relies on the friends and people around her to suppress her pain. Let's not forget that she lost everyone she grew up with, Cloud being the exception, and the only person that she knows that survived Sector 7 platefall is Marlene. And Johnny, because he got out of there before the second reactor bombing. I'll get to him later, but for a while, everyone was happy. But then, Cloud started getting busier.
Face it, Cloud. All you are is an empty puppet.
So, Cloud is interesting to talk about here. A brief recap of his life. Grew up in a small village and spent a majority of his childhood as the black sheep of the town. Left said small town and joined the Shinra infantry at age 13. Made a best friend by age 15. Lost his home to his lifelong hero and was experimented on until age 20. His best friend died in front of him by age 21. Spent time with a group that would become his closest friends, only to realize he wasn't truly himself. Lost someone he loved but feels he could have saved, and is now trying to live a regular life. If it's not clear, my goal by the end of this section is to justify emo Cloud in Advent Children. We all hated it when the movie came out, but now I get it. Let's get started. Cloud was the grocery man. He would go outside of Midgar to pick up food and supplies from the surrounding regions. Remember that the landscape of the world has changed, so people have somewhat easier commutes to places by land. He would usually rent a bike, a truck, or a chocobo when he started, but then he began getting a new side hustle that Tifa initially didn't know about. A delivery boy. On his travels, he would also take mail and whatnot to other places and get paid. He saved that side money to not only get a new bike that he named Fenrir, but pay for modifications for it. The biggest among them being the ability to store all of the blades of his new weapon, the fusion sword. The novels don't say when or how he got it, but Cloud got this new sword to replace the Buster Sword. The fusion sword has 6 blades. The main blade, which is the base, the hollow blade, which makes it more sharp in the front, 2 back pieces, and 2 side pieces. The more blades put in, the more powerful the fusion blade becomes. The Buster Sword resides at the cliff where Zack died, protecting him, serving as a tombstone for the fallen hero. With Cloud's new bike, Tifa encouraged him to stop hiding the side hustle and make it an actual business. Thus began the Strife delivery service. For a good while, they were happy, but as days went by, Cloud was being sent all over the world that he could reach on Fenrir. Their family was now more apart than ever. One day, Marlene and Tifa were cleaning the office where Cloud operated his delivery service and came across a request from Elmira, Aerith's adoptive mother. It was a bouquet of flowers to be sent to the Forgotten Capital. Since then, Cloud was never the same. He became more distant, drank alone, and wasn't good at holding conversations with either Tifa or Marlene. Tifa was now contemplating if she was just making herself believe that they were an actual family. Cloud was clearly suffering from depression and had no way of knowing how to deal with it. How could he? He had years of his life, which could have been spent learning this, taken from him. He has no clue who he is as a person and is now feeling like a burden. And at some point during this, Sephiroth begins creeping into the darkness in Cloud's heart, leaving a gift: Geostigma. One place Cloud frequents on his travels is the Sector 5 church, Aerith's church, to find a way to treat his new stigma and not worry Tifa and Marlene. Geostigma, as far as the world is concerned, is a death sentence, a sometimes long but most definitely painful one. Whether he knew it or not, Cloud would also go to the church, more likely hoping that Aerith would talk to him, forgive him. One day, Denzel was walking around, kicking rocks and looking for anything to eat or something of value to trade in the marketplace. He stops at the Sector 5 church where he finds Cloud's bike outside as well as Cloud's phone. He tries to make a call to Sector 7, which obviously doesn't work. He then notices that Cloud has been ghosting the out of Tifa, considering all of his missed calls are from 7th Heaven. He calls it, and is surprised when he gets an answer.
Cloud? What a surprise! You never call. Is something wrong?
No, ma'am.
Well, who then? Why do you have Cloud's phone?
I don't know.
Who is this?
I don't know. Please. I don't know what to do. I can't do this.
Hey, are you crying?
The moment he said that, he was stricken with insufferable pain. The stigma had crept into another victim. But that's when Cloud came by and picked him up.
Hey. You okay?
He had saved Denzel's life, and from then on, Denzel idolized Cloud. He was his hero. Cloud takes Denzel to the 7th Heaven. As Tifa begins to ask why Cloud brought him here instead of an establishment that was dedicated to helping children with lost parents, Cloud has a Freudian slip, saying, "This kid came to my place." Tifa would broach this choice of words after some time passes. Cloud confesses that he stays there and believes that Aerith brought Denzel to him. Tifa calls him out for what he was really doing: hiding. But Tifa isn't a toxic, jealous person. She claims that she wants to go with him next time and that Aerith didn't bring Denzel to Cloud. Aerith brought Denzel to both of them. Cloud gazed at Tifa and finally smiled. It had a kindness that made her think everything was alright. Yeah, it didn't take long for Cloud to start ghosting her again shortly after. Hopeful and heartfelt as that conversation was, smiles aren't the cure for geostigma. Switching gears to Barret for a second, Barret has made his way to the outskirts of Rocket Town. Shira, Sid's assistant, and I'm assuming partner, spouse, the one that saved his ass in the Shinra number 26 rocket, is in charge of an oil dig, which I find incredibly ironic. We can't use Mako because it siphons life stream from the planet, which is killing it. So we're looking for a fuel source that won't do that. You know what? Oil will suffice. Real life is so depressing. Back to the fictional land where oil is good. The oil dig is coming up empty, and Shira looks at her hands at what she thought was oil, but is actually the stigma. Upon arrival in Rocket Town, Barret has a chat with Sid, and Barret makes his desperation known, going as far as to even suggest using Mako again for a little bit as a jump start for the world. And Sid questions Barret for even suggesting such a thing.
Sid, you gotta tell me. I don't know what to do. My past's like a minefield, full of mistakes. But there had to have been things that were right. But which of them was right? Which was wrong? Which me am I supposed to be from now on? No. I want to change. Am I not allowed because of my past? Huh? Am I supposed to keep this gun stuck on my arm, scaring kids? Is that how I make up for my sins? I don't know anymore. Help me, Sid. What am I supposed to do?
Sid begins to go over everything he's been considering and tinkering with. After everyone saw the destructive force that is the planet, no one wants to piss the planet off again. The reactors were shut down and will stay shut down. However, some reactors still had excess Mako already siphoned before the halting of production, so they can use the little that's there that they can't give back. That little reservoir is currently being used to power machinery that helps with the construction and restoration, but once the reserves are gone, they are SOL. But apparently oil was on the cusp of being an efficient fuel source just before Mako was discovered. How convenient. Sid managed to find the blueprints of oil using engines and machinery. Problem is, Sid currently can't figure out how to modify things to use oil efficiently enough. They have so many things to try but not enough time to do it. And it's here that Barret finds his purpose. He's no stranger to getting his hands dirty in the ground. He offers to take Shira's job of finding oil so that she can assist Sid find a solution and test all their findings efficiently. Before Barret gets to work though, he stops by Old Man Sakaki's workshop. Barret appreciates the wooden arms Sakaki made for him, but his new job may require some fiend dispatching. Also, Barret has been given hope to fight for. And if there's a fight, his gun arm is always with him. Old Man Sakaki expected as much and offered him a new variant arm. He had made it a long time ago, so it had some rust on it, but he encouraged Barret to come by and pick it up a little bit later. The arm was an attachment that can turn from a hand into a gun at will, which we will see in action in Advent Children. Back at the Nibelheim forest, Nanaki is still with the two young Nibel bears. He named them Pazu and Rin. One night, the two bears were old enough and confident enough to no longer need Nanaki. Just as Nanaki was about to leave the forest for good, Pazu could be heard roaring. Nanaki rushes over to find the boy that he had saved a year or so ago fighting Pazu. The boy was obviously losing and his gun was hid away from him. Nanaki states to the boy that the rules of the forest are clear and that he will not be helping either the boy or Pazu. But then Rin shows up to knock the boy away from his brother. The boy is motionless and Nanaki sees the bears beginning to circle him. Before they can swipe at him though, Nanaki covers the boy and gets hurt. The bears feel remorse for hurting their adoptive father and run away. Though injured, Nanaki manages to get up and hide in the thickets just before the boy's father and Elena of the Turks arrive. Apparently, the Turks need the Nibel bear tails to try a new stimulant, most likely to aid in the futile cure for geostigma. Nanaki retreats to lick his wounds and go to sleep. He wakes up sometime later and hears gunshots. After arriving at the source, he finds a village filled with people. Pazu and Rin hung upside down by their paws. Nanaki begins contemplating what a beast should feel and what he actually feels. The feeling of loss, which is very human. Nanaki walks the line between beast and human due to his ability to speak and the fact that he is in fact an animal. And that's when he felt a gunshot graze him. As he looks closer at the bears, they are dead, bloodied, and have their tails cut off. Wild beasts or not, these bears had a very short life. Gilligan is festering within Nanaki, and now his inner beast has been unleashed. He couldn't remember what happened next except a gunshot hitting him and a figure in red. Enter Vincent Valentine. See, he noticed Elena's helicopter heading this way and followed it. After Elena got the bear's tails and left, Vincent was about to as well. That's when Nanaki showed up and gave in to his beast instincts. He was about to bite the neck of the boy's father that he had pinned down. That's when Vincent shot Nanaki and then transformed into his Gallian beast form to make the people in the camp leave. Nanaki explains things from his perspective and then asks Vincent what he should have done. Vincent responds, "In my opinion, when you recall these past events again, you'll have an answer. But when you think about them again, the answer may be different. There is an answer, but there isn't only one. You should continue living to think about it. What's important is that you don't forget about these events. Nanaki felt as if he half understood and half didn't. His feelings were half and half. Maybe you will understand if I told you this, Vincent added, as if he saw right through Nanaki's mind. What you thought was good that time was 100% wrong. All wrong.
That doesn't tell me what I should do. No matter how much I think about it, I just can't decide what the correct course of action should be.
That's just it, Vincent said, standing up as if that's all he had to say. He then went on as if he remembered. You can always choose not to do anything. I have chosen that way once.
How did it turn out?
It may have been best for my retribution. Vincent leaves Nanaki with his thoughts. After mourning the bears he had cared for, he heads north towards Rocket Town, where he meets up with Sid. He rests in Rocket Town while Sid finishes the new airship, Shira. Once completed, Sid takes Nanaki up for a test flight. They head to Wutai and pick up Yuffie. They go searching for a materia cave, but find that the materia wouldn't cure geostigma. By this time, word has gotten out about the cause of geostigma. Killminster has been hard at work for the past 2 years. He noticed that the conditions of the subjects worsened when they were ready for death. That, coupled with the black water, were the two culprits. Rufus decides that only the loss of purpose and acceptance of death cause should be revealed to the public. Black water was too uncommon, and the last thing the planet needs is panicking over a vital life necessity. I now end on the way to the Smile with Vincent and Nanaki at the Forgotten Capital. Nanaki is talking his problems over with Vincent. The fear of losing everyone he's ever known still plagues him. He doesn't have anyone who would truly know him as the hundreds of years will go on. Vincent then offers him the deal that once a year he will be in Midgar, and that's where he will listen to all of Nanaki's worthless stories as if he had no interest in them at all. And just like that, Gilligan was gone. Looks like you've stopped trembling.
Yes, but one day even you, Vincent, will—
That day will never come. I am immortal, whether that is fortunate or misfortunate for me. Nanaki thought about the loneliness that wrapped itself around Vincent. Even though he may have a long lifespan, one day he will die. But Vincent,
Hey, while I'm still alive, be sure to meet every so often so we can talk.
Vincent looked at Nanaki as if troubled and began to speak. Just once a year. You'll have to pardon me if you want to meet any more often than that. Saying that, Vincent hung his head and buried his face in his mantle. His shoulders were shaking a bit. It was the first time Nanaki saw Vincent laughing. Gilligan. Gilligan, did you say?
Laugh all you want.
If you'll excuse me. Vincent raised his voice and laughed. At first, Nanaki stayed quiet, but before long, he too laughed. The last time laughter filled the Forgotten City was during the Cetra Age, but now it rang out through the air once again. Okay, let's get this over with. This book is 400 pages long, so forgive me if I drop some things. We turn our attentions to the Turks and their escapades leading to Advent Children. A break-in has just happened at Heelan. A man named Fabio Brown has infiltrated to steal some medicine for his geostigma-ridden brother, Vitz. A guard is responsible for being bribed to allow Fabio entry in the first place. His name is Throp, which is the type of name a GM at a D&D table throws out when a player asks for a random NPC's name.
I don't even know what you are, but you're adorable. Oh my god. My guns! My guns!
My cunts?
My guns. I heard my...
Throp says Fabio lives in a place near Edge called Doyle Village. Reno and Rude are sent to investigate, and someone who helped Fabio points at someone else's house. The guy is Evan Townsend, the illegitimate brother of Rufus Shinra. Reno and Rude think he's Fabio and beat him up for breaking into Shinra's shit. So Evan knows Fabio because Fabio, a young woman named Kyrie Cannon, and a former Don Corneo lackey named Leslie Kyle, and Evan are part of a detective agency called the Muriel Detective Agency. Kyrie comes from a family of Sector 5 hustlers and thieves. She grew up with Aerith, but one day, Aerith let it slip about her Sector bloodline. Kyrie said it was weird and didn't really hang out with her afterwards. Kyrie lost her parents during a fire in the Sector 5 slums, along with a few of her friends. She then was taken under her grandmother's wing for a little bit. Muriel died of a cold of all things, and they named the detective agency in her name to honor her. I can't wait to experience that in Remake Part 3. Leslie Kyle was a previous lackey to Don Corneo, but fell in love with a girl named Marl, who once was a girl of the Don. So he left the Don's mafia, but Corneo kept a select photo of her as potential blackmail. At this point, Marl is pregnant. Fabio Brown is not important, to be honest, except that he stages a rescue mission later in the book. Completely unrelated, Rufus has tasked the Turks to help build a monument to Midgar and the survivors of Meteor Fall in Edge's main street. I only say this because it comes up later. Now, this book is actually a two-parter. One is called See Me, Feel Me, and the other is Who Are You? So here are the cliff notes of the first part of the book. The detective agency gets a request to look for a man's son. He was a soldier last seen in Nibelheim 2 years ago and a few days before the fated day. Upon looking at the picture, Evan sees someone that looks like his mother. Spoiler warning, that is his mother. While searching for clues, Evan and Kyrie get kidnapped by Reno and Rude. They take them to Rufus because Evan looks identical to Rufus and requests for Evan to be a stand-in for public appearances because Rufus is currently in a wheelchair. Evan declines, but is given one of Rufus's guns as a sign of good faith. A gift between brothers. I find it hilarious if it was this one. Evan, unsure about where to go from here, is saved from an awkward moment when Fabio comes to attack Helan and save Evan. He dies.
We don't care. Let me tell you, we don't care.
With the Turks after him, Evan has the idea to leave for Nibelheim but needs transportation. Because Evan used the car to escape Helan and make it back to Edge, he thinks this car could survive a trip to Junon to take a ship across the sea to the western continent. He needs gas though. Using Seventh Heaven as a meeting point, he calls the Strife delivery service. That's where he has a brief run-in with Cloud. Evan asks Cloud where he can get some gas, and Cloud says to get it from Shinra or the WRO. With that not being an option for Evan, Cloud says, the slums. Don Corneo and Wall Market has some. Tell him Cloud sent you. Evan talks to Leslie about going to the Dawn, which triggers his and Marl's PTSD, but understands that Evan is desperate. Just don't bring up Marl around him. The Dawn is in fact alive, but in a wheelchair, no doubt from his fall in the Dachau Mountains. He agrees to give Evan gas at the Edge main square for 1,000 gil because he knows Cloud. The next day, Kyrie catches up to Evan, and she is in it with him for the long haul, cause they love each other. Leslie is the one that shows up with the gas though, and explains that Marl suggested they deal with their past before the baby is born. Leslie begged for his job back with the Dawn and then set fire to the place before he left to get rid of all the Dawn's blackmail photographs of not just Marl, but Tifa as well. As he was leaving, he grabbed gas and guns for Evan and himself. Leslie and Marl were gonna lie low for a bit while Evan and Kyrie head to Nibelheim. Part 2. Evan and Kyrie stop at a nearby pond. Kyrie hops in the pond to go for a swim with Evan following behind. He then looks back at the car to see a red lion/dog walking around it. It seems Nanaki was making his way to Midgar for the year, maybe to see Vincent for their yearly meetup. The two panic, and Evan, who has never fired a gun before, fires his gun trying to hit Nanaki only to hit the car and cause it to catch fire. Definitely doesn't share his brother's aim. Kyrie is then caught up in the pond's water that has turned black. Nanaki manages to grab Kyrie from being engulfed, and they all make their way to lower Junon for treatment. Don't worry, Kyrie doesn't get geostigma, as much as I would like it. Reno and Rude had grown fond of Evan for his tenacity and constant failures that I glossed over, and started following Evan and managed to pick up all three of them, him, Kyrie, and Red 13. Sung and Elena follow behind to check in on their boss's brother. Now for some actual connection to Advent Children. So Kyrie slips out of the hospital because she sees an old friend. A young man with orange hair and a round nose. Sung catches up to see someone else entirely. What he sees is a man dressed in black with white hair and piercing eyes. The man introduces himself as Kadaj.
No.
You see, Sephiroth had lost too much of himself in the life stream to return to the surface of the planet, so he basically extracted these three figures who died a long time ago from the life stream and brought them to the surface embodied with his essence. Kadaj Laz, and Yazoo. All three were close friends of Kyrie who died in a fire when they were kids. He disappears, and Sung feels incredibly uneasy, probably because of the stab wound someone similar looking gave him a few years ago. The Turks give Evan and Kyrie a ride to Nibelheim. They find the former soldier in the picture they were hired to find, but Evan was more concerned about his mother. Basically, Evan's mother, Annette, left Nibelheim shortly after the photo was taken. She was last seen in Icicle Inn. Nick, Annette's boyfriend that Evan despises, died during the livestream purge of Meteorfall, so he didn't receive the letter she sent from Icicle Inn, so the team head for the northern continent. Once they arrive, Evan reads the note stating the only reason she went to Nibelheim to begin with was because she needed money. As a kid, Evan needed surgery for a heart condition. President Shinra needed people to occupy the newly formed Nibelheim and watch over the black-robed figures that appeared. He was offering a lot of money, enough for Evan's new heart surgery. We do come to find out later that the doctor was just scamming Evan and his mother for more money, meaning Evan's heart was fine. Always get a second opinion, I guess. Kadaj shows up to cause trouble, leading to a big fight, during which Kyrie and Evan fall through the ice into a ravine. The life stream can be seen flowing around them. Here, they manage to find Annette's dead body. In one of the notes she had, we learn that she was a caretaker of the black-robed figures in the base game. She tried to bring some back after Meteorfall, but ended up dying in the process. She also managed to come across Genova's head. Kadaj finds Evan and Kyrie. Evan kicks Genova's head down a hole into the life stream, while Kadaj is crying over his mother like a little bitch. Evan then kicks Kadaj into the life stream. They are taken by the Turks and go back to Edge to take care of Vitz, Fabio's geostigma-ridden brother. Meanwhile, Rufus wants the Turks to find Genova's head so Genova's children don't take it. Genova can't be absorbed into the life stream, and the place where the life stream can be easily accessed is the northern crater. Hopefully they find it before Genova's children don't arrive to grab it. Because Advent means arrival.
Tifa, I'm not fit to help anyone. Not my family. Not my friends. Nobody.
Him. He's coming back.
Sephiroth. A nightmare.
So they say. You mean... I've never known Sephiroth. I sense him there. It's unbearable.
The life stream courses through our world, ever flowing between the edge of life and death. If that cycle is the very truth of life, then history too will inevitably repeat itself. Go on, bring your Genovas and your Sephiroths. Cause trouble till your heart's content. We'll do as life mandates. We promise. We won't let you win. We'll stop you.
Fun fact. Writing the script for these novels was a nightmare.
So boring!
Anyway, the Turks have made their way to the northern crater to look for Genova's head. They find it and get it out of the crater, but are met with opposition. Kadaj has returned from his swim in the life stream and brings his brothers Laz and Yazoo with him. Reno and Rude get away with the head, but Sung and Elena are captured and taken to the Forgotten Capital. There they are tortured for information until Vincent manages to save them. Vincent is still a Turk at heart, so he always tries to keep tabs on them. When Reno and Rude arrive in Helan, Rufus decides that they need someone more powerful to deal with a threat like this. So Reno calls the Strife delivery service to get a hold of Cloud. Tifa relays the message and Cloud doesn't care. Until Kadaj and his gang arrive to stir trouble. They attack Cloud and almost kill him, but Kadaj holds off the attack. Kadaj acknowledges Cloud's innate Genova cells so he can be used to help find it. Cloud decides to hear Rufus out, but his only concern is what purpose would Rufus have to get Cloud involved in this whole thing. Rufus lies about finding Genova's head and almost manages to convince Cloud to help.
You must want to learn all you can about the stigma. Naturally, for the sake of those orphans you live with. Surely you long to see the smiles return to their faces. All we want in the end is to rebuild our world, Cloud.
At this point, Cloud feels pretty useless in life. Helping Rufus could help make the world a better place for the ones he genuinely cares about. But Reno ends up saying something stupid.
Come on, Cloud. Think about it. Together we could rebuild Shinra.
Not interested.
Reno!
Meanwhile, Tifa and Marlene take a trip to the Sector 5 church. Cloud says that he's been spending his time there, so they hope to find him since he's been ghosting their calls. They only find a chest and a white bandage with black marks on it. The truth is then revealed that Cloud has geostigma, so the girls stay at the church to wait for Cloud to eventually arrive. Cloud makes a quick stop at Zack's gravesite to contemplate how useless he feels. He said he would be Zack's living legacy, but Cloud is now contemplating if he was worth saving to begin with. Of course, we all know that he is perhaps the most powerful being on the planet and has saved said planet from total destruction, but what does he do now? I think what's happening here is just a terrible case of survivor's guilt. I don't think Cloud has ever seen himself as special. He saved the world, but has failed to save the ones closest to him. He failed to save Tifa when they were kids. His best friend died because of his weakness to Mako and Genova cells, and he failed to keep Aerith safe due to being easily controlled by Sephiroth. He genuinely cares for Tifa, Marlene, and now Denzel, which makes the fact he can't protect them from this make him feel more useless. Meanwhile, Kadaj has arrived in Helan to kidnap Rufus and force him to tell him where Genova is. Yazoo has been rounding up children who have been suffering from geostigma, Denzel being one of them. Laz arrives at the church to look for Genova and fights Tifa. She won the first round, but then got bodied in round 2. Before delivering the final blow, Marlene has unlocked Cloud's case where he was holding all of the materia from their past journey. She throws one at Laz, which causes him to stop, but Laz then grabs Marlene and the materia with him. They all return to their base, the Forgotten Capital. Cloud arrives back at the Sector 5 church to find his shit stolen and best girl Tifa on the ground. He failed again to protect the ones he loves. The stigma flares up, causing him to pass out. Reno and Rue take them back to 7th Heaven and go to work finding where Kadaj and the others and the kids he took are. Cloud stays with Tifa until she wakes up. Kadaj has successfully created a geostigma cult and has the kids drink the black water, putting them under his control. Reno and Rude inform Cloud of their location, and Cloud tries to run from his problems yet again.
Stop running! I know. Even if you find the kids, you might not be able to help them. Maybe something will happen that can never unhappen. That scares you, doesn't it? But you need to think about now. Really take it in. Look at you. You think you've got it so damn hard. Well, you hate being alone, so let people in. Sure, you might not answer the phone, but I don't see you throwing it away either.
Having read Case of Tifa, this blow-up makes so much more sense considering how patient she was with Cloud until now. So, Cloud decides to actually do something. On his way to the Forgotten Capital, Aerith pops by for a little visit. In On the Way to a Smile, there are 3 chapters called Lifestream White, which focuses on Aerith healing people who most likely died of geostigma and allowing their spirits to join the Lifestream free of the stigma's influence and hatred toward the planet. Lifestream Black focused on Sephiroth spreading his influence and sending the trio to do his bidding. While Aerith thought about doing something similar, she decided not to, because she wanted Cloud to see her as he did in life. On her first visit, she makes Cloud question what he actually wants. Cloud realizes he wants forgiveness for letting Aerith die, but Aerith has nothing to forgive Cloud for because she never blamed him. She suggests that maybe he could learn to forgive himself. But this interaction is cut short by Kadaj and the gang using kids as a human shield. A fight breaks out in where Cloud is fighting a 1v3. Unfortunately, Cloud is still not operating at 100%, but after saving Sung and Elena, Vincent has gone back to the Forgotten Capital just in time to save Cloud. Here, Vincent spills all the information he knows about geostigma, Kadaj's plans, and an unfortunate realization that if Kadaj gets his hands on some pure Genova cells, Sephiroth would have the power to come back in the trio's bodies. Can you imagine 3 Sephiroths running around?
This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer.
Marlene escapes the trio and wants to call Tifa. Problem is, Cloud's phone got lost in the scuffle, and Vincent doesn't have a phone, which he will remedy after this instance. Marlene and Vincent call Cloud on his bullshit, and Cloud has a breakthrough. While he doesn't know if his sins can ever be forgiven, he's decided that he's at least going to try. Anyone who's suffered from depression knows that just attempting any action with depression is a hard battle to win. Good for him. Sometime later, Laz and Yazoo have taken their new brothers and sisters to Edge Square in an attempt to destroy the monument. Since Shinra had a hand in making it, it was the first place they would check for Genova's head. Parents of the children let their frustrations be known, and Yazoo refers them to their complaints department. After a philosophical discussion about the planet with Rufus, Kadash summons Bahamut, who appears to have gotten a facelift and destroys the monument. The Turks face off against Laz and Yazoo, getting their asses kicked in the process. Meanwhile, Bahamut's blast allowed Denzel to break through Genova's mind control and run away. I'm just kidding. He decides to take on a f***ing dragon. Luckily, one by one, the OG team showed up to fight Bahamut. Cloud had also managed to return to Edge, drop off Marlene, and let his family know that he is no longer depressed. From here on out, it's just nothing but action, starting with Cloud and the gang working together to take out Bahamut, during which Rufus gets up out of his chair, revealing that he had Genova's head on him the whole time. He throws the head off the side of the skyscraper there and jumps off as well, expecting the recovered Sung and Elena to catch him. Cloud gets the finishing blow on Bahamut and makes his way to Kadash, who has just gotten Genova's head. From here, they take the fight to the streets. Kadash is in the lead, with Laz and Yazoo keeping Cloud back. It doesn't work. Cloud shakes them, with Reno and Rude offering a little assistance by activating a bomb once Laz and Yazoo reach the end of a tunnel. Kadash takes a brief respite in the Sector 5 slums and cries over his mother's head.
Mother!
I love when things come full circle. Cloud arrives, but his geostigma is too much of a hindrance, but they are in Aerith's domain. By using the flower bed in the church, Aerith is capable of using her level 4 limit break to rain healing water over Cloud's geostigma. Now, for the longest time, we never had a concrete reason as to why Aerith waited until now, but I came across an excerpt found in the latest book, Traces of Two Pasts. Anyway, Cloud is healed of his geostigma. He has grabbed all the parts of his fusion sword, so you know this is serious, and faces off against Kadash. The rest of the team show up, but decide to stay out of this fight, at Tifa's suggestion. She understands that Cloud is a fighter, and after these past 2 years, Cloud had lost what he was fighting for. But Kadash has given him something to fight for, and something he can fight against. So Tifa wants Cloud to have this W. Cloud wins and has Kadash hanging on the edge of a building. With no other option, Kadash tosses Genova's head point blank at Cloud. Naturally, Cloud instinctively cuts through it. With Genova's head open, Kadash takes in Genova's cells. He is now complete.
Good to see you, Cloud.
Okay, so Sephiroth is back, and anyone who has seen this movie knows that this is the best part of the whole movie. But instead of discussing this fight blow for blow, which I would if this video wasn't an hour and a half long, the most important part is at the end. Cloud is exhausted at this point. While Sephiroth may not be at the full power he was at the end of OG FF7, he is still one of the best swordsmen to have ever existed. Cloud activates his level 4 limit break Omni Slash to stop Sephiroth, but Sephiroth has seen this attack sequence before, so he's parrying every single strike and stabs Cloud in a very similar fashion to their first confrontation.
Is this the pain you felt before, Cloud? Let me remind you, this time you won't forget.
With some added stabs for good measure. Cloud is on the verge of losing this fight. It's here that he has an anime protagonist moment and has flashes of all the people he's grown to love and wishes to protect. Here is where Zack Fair stops by for a visit with some words of encouragement. With a new resolve, Cloud fights Sephiroth back with a final desperation move, Omni Slash version 5, or 6 if we're being semantic about it. I'm pretty sure it's called that because there were technically 4 other versions before it. OG FF7, Final Fantasy Tactics, Guys, God Bless the Ring, and Kingdom Hearts. Where was I? Oh yeah, so Sephiroth got bodied.
Stay where you belong. In my memories.
I will never be a memory.
Huh. Wonder what he meant by that. Sephiroth returns to his purgatory, I guess, and Kadash returns. Aerith's voice appears to help Kadash return to the life stream completely, allowing the real Kadash to rest in peace with the ones he loved before Sephiroth took hold of him. Aerith also manages to perform her final limit break Great Gospel all over Edge. With Kadash gone, the day is saved.
We'll go together.
Together, we'll play.
I'm sorry, did you forget one of the biggest rules of Final Fantasy VII? No body, no kill! So yeah, Laz and Yazoo survive the explosion. Cloud goes in to finish them off, but the duo activate all the materia within them and blow themselves up, Cloud included. Cloud is then sent to the life stream. But Aerith and Zack are the ones in charge of who comes and goes in the life stream, so they send Cloud back to the Sector 5 church. Somehow, Aerith is also able to send a little signal to all Edge inhabitants to go to where Cloud is. Aerith's limit break left behind about 3 feet of water in a crater where Aerith's flowers used to be. So when Cloud wakes up in that water, he uses it to essentially baptize all the kids from the Geostigma, including Vitz, the ones Evan Townsend and Kyrie were taken care of. Everyone is healed, and with Sid's airship up and running, he can transport everyone to Midgar to cure the stigma. Aerith and Zack say one last goodbye. Cloud is thankful that he no longer feels alone, and in a post-credit scene, it's revealed that Cloud polished the Buster Sword of its wear, tear, and rust, and now stands in Aerith's church. Shortly afterwards, Denzel meets with Reeve at the bar at the outskirts of Edge. The bar is run by Johnny. Yes! That Johnny. Denzel wants to join the WRO, but Reeve wants to meet Denzel first since they don't take volunteers anymore. They are an army now. Denzel recounts his time from the Sector 7 platefall all the way to meeting Cloud. He wants to join the WRO because he wants to be like Cloud, strong and protective. But after hearing Denzel's story, Reeve decides then and there that the WRO no longer takes in children as troopers. Kids should do what they do best, bring out the best in the adults. Reeve thanks Denzel for taking care of his mother Ruby, and leaves.
They shall be slashed, strangled, and slaughtered. Beaten, stabbed, and crushed. Garroted and impaled. Shot and executed. No mercy.
Somebody get me through this night.
Let the hunt begin!
Let's talk about Deep Ground. So as I stated all the way in part 1, Deep Ground was a city of experimentation below Midgar. The home of Deep Ground is split into north, south, east, and west sectors, with Mako Reactor 0 being in the center. It runs on a hierarchy system from drone, scout, trooper, commander, and general, ending with the Sviets, which according to Google means color in Russian, which makes sense because when you reach Sviet, you are given a color for your title. Something I just learned while fact-checking my understanding of Deep Ground is that each Deep Ground soldier is injected not with Genova cells, assuming they haven't already if they were Shinra soldiers first, but injected with Genesis's cells. So basically, Soldier is a byproduct of Project S, while Deep Ground is a product of Project G. Also, as I go through this information, bear in mind that I will be discussing lore explained in the Dirge of Cerberus multiplayer. Because the multiplayer was Japan exclusive, data and video of the game are hard to come by. So the story may not be 100% accurate, but closer to like 90-95%. So, names to remember: Shulk, Rosso, Azul, Nero, Vice, Argento, and Restrictors. Shulk the Transparent was the girl that was intercepted by Deep Ground on her way to be trained as a soldier because of her special ability, Synaptic Net Dive. It allows her to change people's abilities and mess with their memories, yet requires essentially a lot of MP, so she needs a big supply of Mako to use it and to survive. The experiments also stunted her growth, so she's actually a full-grown woman in a child's body. Japan. Rosso the Crimson is a fast and deadly creature. She holds a lot of G cells in her, but was pushed so far in her abilities through torture that her psyche has been damaged. All she wants is blood and death. Azul the Cerulean has come a long way from when he was last seen in Before Crisis. The last of the 5 to reach Sviet's rank, Azul's lust for strength made him a prime candidate for the Metamorphose project, giving Azul the ability to transform into a behemoth. Nero the Sable. Scientists in Deep Ground took a liking to Dr. Grimoire Valentine's research on the stagnation of the lifestream that is expelled from Mako production. Some evil bastard had the idea to inject that stagnation into an unborn fetus. How original. But this up origin, Nero has the ability to control darkness, allowing for use of teleportation and storing of people and objects that he can call upon whenever he wishes. He's also in constant pain. Nero's only comfort is his older brother, Vice the Immaculate. I am assuming Vice was born first because Nero engulfed his mother in darkness when he was born. Now, Vice is interesting because he's just built different. He has G-cell injections, but his strength is ridiculous. He also has an affinity for absorbing Mako, to the point where he rules over all of Deep Ground, but has to be chained to his throne in the center of Mako Reactor 0. Argento is a woman with a tactful mind who is in charge of offering new recruits advice and designing all the weapons for the FFVIII, such as Vice's gun swords, Heaven and Earth. She was once a soldier that was on the front lines during the Wutai War. Now, each soldier of Deep Ground is implanted with a chip into the base of their brainstem. This chip allows the restrictors, the wardens of Deep Ground, to control all the soldiers at any point. It's the only way to keep these incredibly strong beings from seizing control. But every so often, Vice and Nero are given a little freedom to complete missions. One of importance was grabbing Genesis after his defeat by Zack. They all share similar cells, so Nero and Vice call Genesis their brother. Vice explains the situation to Genesis in hopes he would join them in helping them escape, but Genesis has regained his soldier honor and has no desire to help. He then seals himself in a chamber below Midgar, awaiting when the planet would call on him again. Now, with all that preamble established, let's get this story moving. So the FFVIII discover a programming device called the HJ virus. The virus can break past the firewall protection of Deep Ground's supercomputer, Patricia. Who comes up with these names? Patricia? Really? With the virus discovered, Vice tasks Shulk with uploading the virus, changing the restriction chip plant process, rendering it defective and the individuals free of restrictor control. Argento was in charge of finding a candidate capable of rising the ranks to the FFVIII, while Shulk used SND to alter the candidate's memories to openly want to rebel against the restrictors, using a dead Deep Ground soldier named Usher as a projection to speak to them. The candidate had to reach FFVIII rank because while they won't have control over them, restrictors are still powerful on their own. The candidate was able to wound the restrictor enough for Vice to get the final blow. The SND had taken too much out of the candidate, leaving his body useless, so they were left for dead as the FFVIII and Deep Ground planned their escape. Which brings us to Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, where so many people used footage from for their Final Fantasy VII game music videos. Crawling in my crawl! Okay, I think that's as good as I'm gonna get. So 3 weeks before we see Vincent and Calm waiting to meet up with Reeve, a news crew found the entrance to Deep Ground and went missing. I believe that at some point between then and Deep Ground's toppling of the restrictors, Hojo's consciousness has reassembled itself in the World Wide Web and took over Vice's body. Yeah! Anyone who's played the game, remember that bullshit? So Hojo's master plan is to control Omega, having seen Vincent controlling Chaos firsthand during their confrontation in Midgar. For those who need a quick refresher, Omega is the ultimate of all the weapons. Omega is the planet's last resort. It would only appear if the planet became on the verge of extinction and needed to start life over again. It would take the life stream with it and find a new planet to settle on and start the world over. Chaos would be Omega's herald. For any Marvel fans out there, Chaos is the Silver Surfer and Omega is Galactus. Hojo had unintentionally made Vincent the perfect vessel for Chaos through the experiments he performed on him. Vincent is immortal and virtually indestructible. The Genova cells Hojo injected into himself may have made his body resilient enough to hold Omega's might, similar to Vincent and Chaos, but Genova plays by her own rules and would eat away at him. Deep Ground had the best people for this task, but Vice was perfect for it. Now, all they needed to do was have Omega be formed, but Genova cells have tainted too many people over the years. Omega needs people untainted, and so Deep Ground begins their mission of killing anyone they can't use and capturing those they can. Time for me to be 100% honest with you. So, Dirge of Cerberus is a game of fluff and no substance, which is a shame because when it comes to character development, this entire game is about Vincent. But as I am making this video, it occurs to me that I have already gone over Vincent's backstory and trauma. So if I were to go over the story of Dirge of Cerberus in the same detail as all of my other coverings, I would just be torturing myself and you guys. This dialogue and story is bad.
You had his eyes.
What?
So I'm going to recap Dirge as fast and coherently as I possibly can. Deep Ground attacks Calm. Vincent searches for Reeve and runs into Shulk and Azul, but Shulk uses too much power and needs a nap. So Azul leaves, leaving out of the same exact hallway that Reeve enters. What the fuck? Reeve wants Vincent to work with the WRO, but is all angsty and doesn't want to. Reeve gets shot, but it was just Kate Sith and a Reeve doll, being controlled by Reeve. Huh? Vincent manages to beat back Deep Ground from Calm, but Deep Ground manages to grab a lot of people to kill. They are attempting to make a life stream that will trick Omega into manifesting. Junon was the first to be attacked, now Calm, and the WRO think Edge is next. It was, and 500 people are now missing. There, Vincent has a run-in with Shalua Rui, Shulk's sister and the WRO resident analyst. She's all kinds of fucked up as she spent her whole life looking for her sister and lost some body parts along the way. Hashtag relatable. Vincent arrives and faces off with Rosso or Crimson, but it ends in a stalemate as chaos is manifested. Vincent collapses and is taken to WRO headquarters. Problem is, Shulk is using the proto-materia that Vincent uses to control Chaos to track him. Deep Ground needs the proto-materia to control Omega once he's summoned. Deep Ground attacks the WRO, Shulk and Shalua catch up, Shulk and Azul are knocked out and captured, kind of. The WRO are actually really stupid because they take 2 of Deep Ground's elites and don't even bother restraining them, especially this mass monster. You know what? You idiots deserve what's coming. Vincent heads to Nibelheim for answers, gets stabbed by Rosso in a sneak attack, and gets the proto-materia extracted from his chest. Before Rosso can finish Vincent off, Eupholie arrives and they ninja out of there. They make their way back to the WRO headquarters as Azul and Shulk cause havoc on the inside as Deep Ground attacks from the outside. Shalua manages to somewhat convince Shulk to join them as Azul approaches to kill them all. Shalua sacrifices herself after locking off the passage to Vincent and Shulk. Or that's what I would say, but for some reason she is still alive and just has severe head trauma, which I am calling bullshit. I mean, who's surviving this?
I think I broke something.
Walk it off!
Anyway, Deep Ground retreats and the WRO decide to take the fight to Deep Ground in Midgar. Sid picks up Vincent, Reeve, Yuffie, and Shulk in the Shira and make their way to Midgar. From here on, toward the end of the game, Shulk is providing info on Omega's lore by piecing together Lucrezia Crescent's research. Watch part 1 of my series for all of that shit. Cloud, Tifa, and Barret lead an assault on Midgar from the ground, while Vincent, Sid, Yuffie, and Reeve attack from the air. Nanaki was just not invited, I guess. Boo! Vincent lands in Midgar and slowly kills his way to Deep Ground HQ. First to fall was Rosso, and then Azul. Nero the Sable appears on the Shira and kidnaps Shulk, but Shulk manages to keep a sphere around her to prevent her from being assimilated. Vincent eventually learns how to call upon Chaos while still in his base form and manages to save her while defeating Nero. Now for the final cringe. Vincent confronts Vice, who has been absorbing the powers of Omega. He betrays and mortally stabs Nero, where he reveals that it's actually Hojo! I've been saving you from this cringe fest as much as I can, but up to this point, Lucrezia has been attempting to encourage Vincent to keep fighting through the World Wide Web. I guess. So with new resolve, he defeats Hojo, Nero comes back to help Vice regain control from Hojo, and Hojo is alt-tabbed out of Vice's head. Omega is then released, which prompts Chaos to be released. Omega begins siphoning the lifestream through Midgar's inert reactors. With Shulk saved from Nero's control, she regains some Mako, grabs hold of Lucrezia's thoughts, wishes, and dreams, along with the proto-materia, and uses SND to propel the proto-materia into Vincent's chest. Vincent has regained control of Chaos, and now takes the fight to Omega. The rest of the team managed to sever the connection that Omega has to the reactors, allowing Vincent to enter into Omega to stop Vice. One boss fight later, Omega releases his wings, and attempts to leave the planet with the lifestream. Vincent uses all of the power of Chaos to destroy himself and Omega. The lifestream returns to the planet, and Vincent is nowhere to be seen, most likely dead. We then find out that he's at Lucrezia's cave. Shulk knew he would be there, so she waits for him outside, ready to meet him. Shulk and Vincent look out to the sky, roll credits. Fuck this game. Max, take it away.
Nope. The faster you can erase this from your memory, the better you'll feel about Final Fantasy VII.
Last thing to discuss is that Vice's body is found at the bottom of a cave. From here, Genesis appears. Apparently, the planet has called upon him for a special purpose. What that purpose is, we may never know, because Dirge of Cerberus was so bad that the storyline of Final Fantasy VII comes to a screeching halt here until 2020 with FF7 Remakes release, which means this series is now officially done, and I can start doing theory discussions, so stay tuned for that. All in all, Final Fantasy VII has a lot of ups and a lot of downs.
You have the downs!
I've grown up with this series, and I would argue the series has grown up as well. From its blissful start as a baby, to its fumbling around as a toddler learning to walk,
Dilly-dally, shilly-shally,
to its emo teenage phase and young adulthood, using the love it was given as a child to move forward. Now it's an adult, adapting with the times while going to therapy about its past, but having some fun along the way. Thinking to itself, what if I did things differently? I want to see what is next for Final Fantasy VII, and by learning of its past, maybe you and I can learn to appreciate what is coming in the future.
The reunion at hand may bring joy, it may bring fear,
Totally gonna be a
but
movie.
let us embrace whatever it brings.
I don't want to believe it.
Look at it already!
Are coming back.
This ain't real.